I'm Sam Duckworth, Get Cake by Cake Fly. Didn't walk here today, no. Had a journey from hell, stuck on the M6 for, I don't even know how long, way too long. Yeah, no, I was watching Shut Up and Play the Hits, the LCD Sound System documentary, and I kind of liked the way that when he was interviewed, James Murphy was talking about ending a project on a high and kind of going out on your own terms. And I kind of got to the point where, as I know, a lot of my set was coming from years ago, and a lot of it is so political that I didn't really feel kind of fair going out and playing a set of songs that don't necessarily feel applicable to the way I feel now and where I'm at as a human now. And what I didn't want to do is, I didn't feel there's a natural album to come forward. And realistically, then, if it's if I'm going to write an album but it's going to be another 2 years, it feels like way too long between records. So it felt like a comfortable time to be like, I'm still enjoying this, I still love it, I'm still proud of it, but I've had enough, I'm ready to move on. And I'd rather do it in a way that's fun and celebratory than something that feels like it's just kind of, it's now going through the motions or anything like that. I'll tell you one thing that's interesting. I think the first time I played here would have been 9 years ago, and an awful lot's happened in that 9 years. It's quite strange how much kind of social internet has changed the way that everything operates, from the news, from communication between friends, right the way through to the kind of platform that I work and release music. Yeah, so it's difficult really. I think there's lots of noise and there's very few things capturing my attention because it's very difficult for anything to permeate through the static. It's every so often, like the guy that's out with us on tour, Sean McGowan, it's kind of, there'll be an artist that kind of breaks through and makes people pay attention, and there's somebody that very much did that to me. But I don't know really, I'm just kind of struggling a little bit with a sense of identity and a sense of direction. I feel like, I feel like I preferred times when I wasn't so heavily reliant on the internet for an existence, and I've kind of fallen out of love with that whole process. So yeah, I don't know really. I mean, I guess there's too many things kind of capturing my attention and not enough stuff sinking in, and it's kind of left me just feeling a little bit lost. I think humans are the biggest threat to the survival of the human race. I think the qualities of humans that not necessarily the most positive are, the ones that are ultimately going to cause downfall, be it greed or gluttony, and a lot of things kind of wrapped up in the current financial system, and how human beings have kind of put a value on financial commodity over each other is something that I find very difficult. But to offer the absolute counterpoint, if anyone's going to turn it around, it's going to be the human race as well. So where the challenges are presented, it's kind of time to look for solutions and kind of invest time and energy and people power in trying to see if there is actually a way of stopping it, or if there's not a way of being able to kind of downsize and be a bit more comfortable with kind of existing in a less kind of flashy, all guns blazing way of life, which unfortunately is not sustainable ecologically or economically. I think that the only solution is total full-scale infrastructural collapse. I think it's institutional failures, power failures, full-on disaster is the only thing. I think it needs to be torn down and rebuilt in a new image. But at the same time, I don't think that's practical, or I don't really wish it on society, because I think it will cause mass implications. I think it's about, for me, it's about making people aware that collapse is the answer, because there is not enough resources to sustain way of life, and there isn't enough, energy emotionally, or in terms of physical energy, in terms of power and resources to sustain this way of life, and that means deconstructing the image of what we think is comfortable and acceptable. I think they're written from an autobiographical standpoint, but they're not all necessarily about me. I think that's one of the things that people have kind of I don't know, I've struggled to really articulate, and you know, I have to take full culpability in that because I should have probably made it a bit clearer, is that, yeah, I mean, the songs are written about people I know, or about fictional characters. They're mostly about very specific scenarios or emotions or feelings that I want to convey, and then it's about kind of deconstructing that subject matter and finding the best way to be able to articulate that coherently. I don't know, I mean, it's a loaded question in the sense that, you know, it depends what you classify that as. You know, if you take it right to a straight edge culture where, you know, everything was very clean and, you know, very clean living and straight edge, and people were just, you know, were not putting anything in their body, be it alcohol, cigarettes, whatever, you know, it provided a great cultural point for music to flourish, and then it kind of imploded in on itself. I think that music is something that has to be created by somebody in a state of mind. You know, music can offer you a transcendent experience in a way that nothing else can. You know, I think that it's not for me to judge, it's up for people to do whatever they want. You know, you can kind of put whatever you want into your body if that's how you feel, but if it puts you in a position where you're acting detrimentally to society, then you have to question yourself, is this the right thing that you should be doing with your life? And I think that drugs have a role in bringing down musicians more than they have in providing positive music, but that's not a condemnation, that's just my observation. Yeah, there is. I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer in an interview because I'm not really too sure fully where I stand on everything. You know, I'm kind of, you know, I feel that, you know, spirituality is often a great starting point for revolution. You know, I feel that, you know, well, it should be. You know, it should be the role of, you know, religions that practice certain, you know, ideologies for actually to be seen through. You know, for kind of, you know, practical work from, you know, from churches or from synagogues or from mosques. You know, if people are going to be kind of preaching a better way, then they should show a better way. I think that, you know, one of my biggest issues is, you know, religion as judgment and not religion as practical kind of, you know, ways of living. And I think that if people, you know, started to kind of adopt more of a, you know, practical faith-based life, then it might, you know, make a difference and might start to convince people that actually that might be a practical option for them. For about 18 months it made me not want to do anything. You know, I'd completely had enough of everything. And this is kind of the positive byproduct of that. It's like, if I am going to make that call and decide that I'm not going to do anything, this is a nice way to kind of put the final spot on it. But yeah, it gives me a real, you know, my mind kind of reshuffled very quickly and put a lot of things in place. And I realised that like tons of my sources of unhappiness were all related to the thing that I love. So yeah, I don't know. I still don't fully know, and it's 2 years on. That was a song written for the people of Pripyat. I went to Chernobyl about 2-3 years ago, and basically when the reactor kind of crumbled, it threw up loads of kind of really fine white dust, and unfortunately just kind of covered people and landscapes. And it's a song about kind of, you know, messing with atoms and messing with kind of nuclear energy on a way that we still don't fully understand. And I think if anybody kind of wants to preach the thing that we should put all our money into nuclear, we should invest in nuclear power and nuclear weapons, there's no better example in the planet to see what happens when that all goes wrong. And it's a dedication to the, you know, thousands of people whose lives are affected, and to an abandoned city. Yeah, absolutely, industry's changed big time. Or it might not, it might have just been better in my day, it might just be one of those. You know what I mean? It's hard to tell after you've been doing something for 10 years whether your perspective is right or not. I think that there's a lot more emphasis on non-musical stuff. You know, there's a lot more emphasis on social media and profile building and trying to build your own brand and all of the stuff that actually politically and socially I stand very much against. And I feel that one of the negative things of that is that you know, it's put less focus on what things sound like and more on their impact. But then, on the converse, it's also allowed people a freedom of expression and people to kind of, you know, redefine the way that they do things. So, yeah, the industry's changed for positive and for negative, and, you know, I'm not sure where I stand, but I don't necessarily think I can give you a finite answer to that question. Probably Ishmael, I think. Mostly because it's the one I think that if I was to write it tomorrow it would still feel current. I feel there's a few that do that, but I feel in a way that maybe no other song I've written does. I think probably Ishmael. There's a book called One No Many Yeses by a guy called Paul Kingsnorth, which every so often I'll just dig back into. There's a kind of travel diary of kind of political activism, and I don't know, it just fills me with hope when I read it, really. It kind of gives me a sense of, you know, it doesn't really necessarily tell you what to do, it just kind of lets you know that there's loads of people around getting on with stuff that similar to how I felt. And it's just something I'll get back into when I'm feeling like, you know, politics is, you know, is working against me rather than for me in terms of my personal headspace.
Okay.
Probably my mum and dad, because I haven't seen them in ages, and my girlfriend, because I have seen her in a while, but she'd be annoyed if I asked somebody else. I've met lots of people that I respect, I've met and I'm happy, but if I was going to have dinner with anybody it'd be people that I really love. I've had so many nightmares about this tour. Although I don't remember this, but I woke up the other day apparently and the first thing I said was Quavers. I don't know why, but I've been dreaming about Quavers, shouting it in my sleep, so... Can I pick three?
Pick as many as you want.
Glastonbury 2010 in the left field was amazing. I don't know if I've ever seen energy like get Cape Show than in that tent, so that was wicked. The show at Coco, 5.5 hour kind of improvised show with Africa Express, which, I don't know, it was mad. Completely and utterly out of my comfort zone. Absolutely loved every second of it. And then probably Glastonbury this year did a kind of Glastonbury last year put together a show with about 57 musicians running within an hour with kind of loads of overlaps, and then it's about 3 months of planning, and when you spend 3 months planning something and it works, it's no better feeling. So fingers crossed tonight that'll happen too.